Jennie.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep my comments reasonably brief because I think there's a lot of experience in the room, and it would be good to get a bit of a discussion going. But thanks to all of the presenters for really fascinating presentations, and to the others who wrote articles as well in the exchange, because it really has been a really interesting read. It's particularly good timing for us in DFID, in the UK government, because we are at a point where we're about to sort of scale up, in a sense, our thinking around accountability to beneficiaries particularly, and I'll say a little bit more about where that's come from and where we hope it's going to go. But just maybe a moment's reflection on some of the things that we've heard from Paul and David and Gwyn and Brian in terms of where we've come in the last 10 years or so. So, you know, we've rehearsed the fact that there are still enormous challenges, particularly on the side of improving accountability to beneficiaries in humanitarian contexts. By their very nature, humanitarian contexts are full of urgency. There is a huge compulsion to get action taken and to get lives saved and living standards improved as quickly as possible. So often that's difficult to marry with a more consultative and participatory approach to planning and replanning and evaluation. There's the difficulty of attribution and judging progress, low baselines, and the difficulty of articulating baselines, and also to attribute who has made what impact, to whom can certain results be attributed. Difficult on the donor accountability side. Paul very articulately outlined some of the tensions that these issues throw up, and the difficulty of judging or prioritising between accountability to beneficiaries on the one hand and to donors on the other. And of course there's the very difficult issue of gleaning views and involving people who have come from very, very difficult contexts, often very disrupted and sometimes quite traumatized populations. So all sorts of challenges still exist and still make this a really difficult area of our humanitarian work. But also we've heard that lots of progress has been made. There have been sort of fundamental changes to the context within which we're working and the tools that we have at our disposal to try and improve accountability. There's been a huge, in the last 10 years, a massive democratization of media with the advent of Twitter and Facebook and all these other clever things that flutter around in the atmosphere. There's been a huge increase in the ownership of mobile phones, and that in itself has transformed the way that information is shared in humanitarian contexts. And arguably there has been some quite significant leadership on the accountability issue. Gwyn and Brian referring to the ISC process, I think is critical, and some significant changes are sort of afoot, we hope, through that process. And I'll talk a little bit about the leadership on accountability issues and results within DFID and the UK government in a moment. But also we are working in an environment where scrutiny is huge. Paul said we're increasingly visible in the work we do in all sorts of different contexts out there in the field, but also here in the UK, you know, from a donor perspective, there is massive daily scrutiny on everything we do from DFID and the media, and that's huge. That's fundamental to the way we're currently doing business, and I think that applies to a great number of us in this room and around the place. So lots of challenges remain, and lots of progress and changes have been noted, I think, in the last 10 years. So let me just say a little word about DFID and the UK government and where we are right now. Many of you will have heard of the Ashdown Humanitarian Emergency Response Review, which was issued this year, which was an independent review of the way the UK government does humanitarian assistance. And that had sort of 7 key themes, and one of which was accountability. So for us, it really increased the scrutiny and the focus and the political capital internally within our organisation on accountability, I think, and particularly on beneficiary accountability as something sort of not new, but something to give renewed emphasis to within the DFID context, if you like, because we already had massive focus on the results and value for money side of things with the new government coming in. So Lord Ashdown and his team have championed the accountability issue, and then that's translated into both the government's response to that review and then our new humanitarian policy, which was issued in September this year. And each of those documents sort of articulates our positioning on this. But just to give you a little taster of what that means for us, I mean, the observation of those documents was that currently we are not sharing information with beneficiaries as well as we possibly could, we being the broader we of ourselves and those we fund, because that's the way we work and do business. So consultation with beneficiaries could be much, much better, and obviously the observation that that we need to put accountability at the very heart of what we do for both the purposes of improving our understanding of what's needed on the ground, but also so that we can respond to the increased media scrutiny that I referred to. And alongside that, an observation that we're not just going for sort of DFID improving its own practice and improving the ask that it makes of its partners that it funds, but also a commitment to the collective accountability that Andy Featherstone's article particularly referred to, and others have mentioned, that the system, the humanitarian system as a whole, needs to be working towards improved accountability collectively, and what we do on an individual basis needs to add up to something more powerful. So alongside that specific focus, we also are working within a context where the UK government has made a huge commitment to transparency as one dimension of accountability, and every project that we fund now gets the documentation goes up on the website, and so that has also had a massive impact on the way we think through our work and the way we articulate it, and it also improves or has potential to improve our accountability through that. And as those of you who seek to get funding from DFID know, there is an absolute unrelenting focus on results, and I think it would be interesting to hear different perspectives on that and maybe discuss this a little bit. As I think Paul observed, there are pros and cons to that, and even internally we rehearse the trade-offs there and some of the difficulties in articulating results, but it's there, it's unrelenting, and it's not going away. So that's just a taster of where we are from a DFID perspective. I mean, we've had these policy commitments. We've got increased focus internally. We are, talking the talk in a sense. But I think other colleagues who are here from DFID will feel this as well, and maybe will want to add to what I'm saying. But we now need to do it better, and there are lots of different ways that we can do accountability better, and we're at a point where we are really trying to deepen our understanding of what that looks like, and some of our partners are far more expert in that than ourselves, and we're trying to learn and glean from others' experience as well. So in that sense, it's a very good moment for us to have a contribution such as the Humanitarian Exchange to provoke more thought and discussion internally. We're also increasing our staff resources to help us to do that. But therefore, with those comments, I welcome further commentary and discussion in the broader forum.
Thank you very much, Jenny.